that little tease that you showed at the end. So now I've got a whole bunch of new questions. Do we start there, or do we?
Let's end there.
Let's end there. Okay, we'll end there. What were the first conversations, when you decided that you were going to make 2 films and you would explore the character Pearl and her origins? What was that first conversation between both of you, Mia and Ty?
The very first conversation was, once I had the idea, I called Mia and I said, all right, this is a long shot, but if we made 2 movies in New Zealand, would you stick around for another couple months and be in it? And that was the beginning of it, because as soon as the idea formed, if Mia couldn't do it, then there was no movie. So that was the very first conversation that we had, was just, would you be willing to spend a little more time in New Zealand if we could pull this off?
Absolutely.
And so, but when actually approaching the project and exploring Pearl, were both scripts sort of written at the same time, or was it through making X that you began to start to build the world of what Pearl would be?
It was actually more in the middle. So X was written, X was cast, X was greenlit. We were heading down to New Zealand, and the idea was, what if we stayed longer, we made a second film, and we started collaborating, Mia and I, about the backstory of Pearl and coming up with the ideas for the script. And then in the 2-week mandatory quarantine that you had to do in a hotel to get into New Zealand, I was there and Mia was still in New York, and we would FaceTime and just write the script and collaborate on all that in those 2 weeks. And I had told A24, like, we have this idea, and I think they were like, okay, cool, whatever, but I don't think they thought we'd actually show up with a script. And then we did, and they liked the script, and then there was a whole production plan in place because we had already built everything for X, and I just knew that we could stay and do it. And then off we went, and they greenlit Pearl right before we started X, so we were able to make X with Pearl in mind. So if you see X again, there's all kinds of things from this movie that the first time you saw it wouldn't have been anything, but now that you've seen this, like the wheelchair's in there, and obviously the backstory means a lot more, and her bike is in there, and there's just all kinds of fun stuff like that. So we were able to make the movies almost like one big giant movie.
What were the challenges too in like de-aging, I guess, all the like redoing that entire location?
It was hard. It was, we had just made a movie that took place in the 70s, and we were very inundated in that, and we had spent 6 weeks shooting, mostly nights, and we probably wrapped on a Friday, and on Monday we were back in the office, and everything was like totally different. And it was all new colors and all new props and a whole different period, and it was a very strange adjustment period, and especially for the crew, because we had spent so much time on this farm and we got to know it so well. We knew every nook and cranny, and we had filmed every corner that there was possible. And then everyone went away for 3 weeks, and then when we came back and it looked like this, it was like a strange lucid dream for everyone to be back in the exact same place and have it be transformed. And that's a huge credit to Tom Himmick, our production designer, and Malgosia, our costume designer, and Elliot Rocket, the DP, because I mean, it's the exact same everything, but a totally different movie, and that's a credit to their hard work and to the crews that work with it.
I'd love to discuss the visual look of the film because it's just a stunning movie and it's indebted to sort of a Technicolor look. But what films were you specifically drawing on in terms of the visual design of the film?
Weirdly, there wasn't anything that was like so specific to like this film, that film. It was more of an era more than anything else. I think for when it came to production design or cinematography, we probably had some swatches of like, okay, the red shoes and things like that, or Wizard of Oz obviously plays it. Yeah, and so like, there was like aesthetics that were like like mood board to be like, okay, we gotta go this far with this color and that. But as far as the movie itself, me and I just kind of wrote this movie, and it made sense because originally when we first did it, the cheapest way to do it we were initially going to pitch A24 was to do it like a black and white, like German expressionist kind of thing, because then we didn't have to paint anything; it would just be gray. And so it's just like we don't spend anybody, we don't have to get wallpaper or anything. And but then there was this version of the movie, and A24 also was great about just being like, look, that movie's a little more expensive, but let's do it because it's better, and rightfully so, because I think it's, even if you read the script, you could picture this sort of like Bergman-esque black and white thing, and it would work, but it's not the same because the who Pearl is, I think, is represented in the vibe of the movie.
Mia, what was the writing process like working with Ty?
Daunting at first. I had never written a script, and so this was all very new to me, and at the beginning I struggled somewhat just to know how to write in a script format. And so I reached out to Ty, and then he said, you know what, just put a timer on your phone and just go for 30, 45 minutes at a time and just write in a kind of stream of consciousness style and just see what comes out. And that ended up working really well. And so I would do that, put a timer on, and then just go, and then things would come, and I would send that over to Ty, and he would then discuss certain ideas with me, and then he would implement that into the script, and it kind of evolved from that.
That monologue that you have at the end is astounding. Stream of conscious writing sessions. How did you develop that monologue?
Yeah, that was born from the stream of consciousness style that I adopted, and that came from me and Ty, and it was something that we were building for a while. It's a 5-6 minute monologue, and we didn't just want her speaking rubbish. It was a real opportunity for us to humanize Pearl, and for the audience to really kind of get to know her in a very intimate way, and to kind of hopefully have the audience empathize with her, and perhaps understand why she did what she did.
As challenging as that monologue must have been, that final shot, that incredibly striking final shot. Can you describe what that was like on the day? Like, is there how long you went, and what the discussion was behind? Because I feel like as an actor, you put a lot of faith in your director that like what is happening with this moment, and I'd love to hear you discuss that final shot, because that was something that like has stuck with me ever since I first saw the film.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so here's the story. It's basically we were setting up to shoot the scene where she has the lemonade and says hello to Howard, and I was thinking that we open the movie with a freeze frame of the alligator and the goose, and I was thinking I'm going to end the movie with a freeze frame, and it's going to be a nice bookend. And I have no idea why I thought of it, but when we set up to do that, I was like, hey, it might be cool. And I was like, if we do like an organic freeze frame, and you smile, and then let's just see how long we can go and see what happens. And Mia was like, okay. And so we did it one time, and that's what's in the movie. I mean, it was like, very much a spur of the moment idea. It just seemed like maybe this could be something. And then credit to Mia, it's kind of like everything in the movie, so it's worked out great.
I'd like to give the audience the opportunity to ask a few questions. I have a few more, but let's go to the audience. There's one right up there. That was the first hand I saw. Yeah.
First of all, I want to say congratulations on the film. Absolutely amazing. So A24 have been doing a lot of like gory films and stuff. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on like how gore is going to be in horror movies and stuff. Like, do you like that sort of gory or?
So the question is with regard to the gore in the film. I think what's interesting too about this movie is that compared to X, it is a different kind of movie. It is like it doesn't have the same type of kill sequences and stuff. So I want to speak to the violence in the film.
yeah, as far as other people's movies in gore, I don't know. But in the case of X, that was a sort of 1970s slasher movie, and it felt like we needed to deliver on the practical gore effects. I mean, I remember every death scene from every horror movie I've ever seen in my life, and so I wanted to try to contribute to that with that movie in a spirited way. But this was a much more personal story and a more psychological story, and so, I mean, it has its fair share of gruesome moments. I mean, certainly cutting off Missy's head in a close-up was a doozy. Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I don't really think about gore other than I think about like, well, what do you want you guys to feel at this part? And sometimes it's like, I gotta show you a head fly off, and sometimes I can cut away to something else. But it was really just trying to be as effective to the ideas and effective to Pearl as possible.
David, what was your experience getting skewered with that?
Oh God, that was a bizarre day. Was that the same day I got driven into the lake?
I think it was a different day.
Different day.
Well, however, credit to you, because he went into the lake. That's
It was really cool to watch Ty work in figuring out those moments, because they're on set. Each moment can feel very silly, for lack of a better word, because we're just doing the pitchfork going in the first time, and then we're resetting with more blood, and then just the pitchfork going in the second time. And Mia's having to do most of the heavy acting lifting in those moments, so getting each piece together and giving it whatever you can give it, and then seeing it come together on the screen is great, because there it actually makes some sense, and the music helps a lot as well.
There's some questions over here, yes?
Can we talk Maxine?
Can we, no, we're gonna wait till, Maxine at the end. There we go.
First of all, just again, congratulations. It's such a beautiful film. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And it's just you talked, Ty, at the beginning about how you were feeling like, are we going to be able to make movies after this? This film is so suffused with the love of storytelling and filmmaking. Unbelievable. My question is, so you're working with this actor. You cast her in X. Like, what did it feel like to discover she was capable of like an all-time great performance of a psychic? It must have been mind-blowing, impressive, again, awesome, facilitate that.
The question was, I mean, it's really about your relationship directing Mia and what you've sort of discovered about each other, I guess.
Well, when we made X, Mia was the second Zoom meeting I had. And when we got off the phone, I was just like, we're done. And it's hard to explain why. I mean, we got along very well. I think Mia had a grasp of the movie in a similar way that I did. And at the risk of sounding incredibly corny, I would say it was just like that X Factor thing. Like, it was like, I just was like, she's got this. And I knew, and that's why after that meeting, I was like, we're done. And at the time, it was to play 2 roles in X, which was the goal, but like could have gone all kinds of wrong if it was in the wrong hands, and I just knew it wasn't. And I knew that, Mia gives 110% all the time, and I just knew that. And sometimes you just know.
There was a question up there in the dressing room. Okay, I like what you did. You skipped Maxine.
Hopefully I just keep putting teasers on every movie that I make. And we just keep jumping all around. It's a good way for me just to keep working.
Right there.
We're close. I can just briefly say that, like, to me, in both movies, these are characters that are very ambitious, and they want lives that they don't have, and what they're aiming for is a very narrow bullseye that is like mostly filled with failure. And that's something that certainly, like, all versions of showbiz tend to come with. Most people that would like to do something in some form of show business aren't going to succeed at doing it, and the very small minority that does is still going to be full of failure, and that's very difficult for people who wrap up who they are in that. And I think that for both of these characters, they're just very ambitious and very determined, and that's what kind of relates to them in a way, is that they're very driven to change their lives.
I'd love to ask about the music and the dancing and Mia, your incredible performance at the audition. What went into planning that sequence?
A lot, really. We wrapped X after a 6-week shoot. Half of the shoot on X was were nights, And so by the time we came to the end of that production, we were completely nocturnal, and it's actually quite difficult to then readjust back into days. And we only had one day off, and then the following day after that, I was straight into dance rehearsals. And me and the choreographer, we came up with a couple of dances, and then we showed Ty, but that wasn't quite it. You know, Ty is very detail oriented, and he knows exactly what he wants, and so we had to shape it in a different way, and it took some work, and you know, just simply because we had no break as well, just the intensity of everything that we had come from, and then moving on to Pearl, and then having to do this dance sequence, it was quite a lot.
And the score is incredible.
Yeah, and Tim, are you here? Yeah, so Tim Williams.
What was your direction for Tim? Like, in terms of what you wanted from the
We
film?
had done X, and Tyler Bates was the composer on X with Chelsea Wolfe, and the score for X was a very kind of stripped down vocal score, and it was complicated in its own way. And I told Tyler, oh, we're gonna do 2 movies or whatever, and he was like, okay, cool. And but you know, like with X, it was like it was hard, but it was there wasn't that much that went into it. It was like Chelsea's voice and what Tyler was doing, and most of that was synthesized. And then on Pearl, I had to call him, and he was already ready to do a second movie, and I was like, so here's the thing, this one's a little bit bigger. And so I know that you agreed to doing these 2 movies, but we're gonna need a big orchestra on this one. And you know, the thing that's great about Tyler is he was just like, right on, man. And so Tyler, and Tim have worked together before, and so they kind of partnered up and wrote this whole thing, and wrote, produced, and recorded the whole thing with orchestra in Nashville in like, I don't know, 2 months. I mean, something absurd. So it was it was incredible to see it come to fruition.
We only have time for one question, and so we have to now ask, what can we expect from Maxine? Tell us.
Sweet ass, bro. We've been so good at keeping secrets. We kept this movie a secret the entire time, and we kept this, up until this played, I was like, someone's gonna say something. Someone's gonna say something you didn't even know. So we've been very tight-lipped, and I think we're mostly gonna continue to do that. But what I can tell you is that we're gonna catch up with Maxine, and we're gonna find out what she's up to, and the way that X is a movie that is informed by and affected by cinema and independent exploitation, auteur Americana, 1970s cinema, and Pearl is perhaps affected by this golden age of Hollywood, glitz and glamour of cinema. Maxine will be more about within the industry itself and the boom of VHS and things like that. So I gotta be pretty tight-lipped, but we made it this far, and I'm hoping